What is going on, everybody? You can't see me right now, but I'll take the overlay off the screen. My jabroni ass over here didn't do so beforehand. But welcome to our round 3 live stream for the Sanderson Farms. Gonna be a quicker stream here. So if it seems like I have a little bit more purpose here, a little bit more pep in my step, it's because I've got a dinner afterwards. Me and a few buddies are going out to town. So gonna get this in hopefully like 20 to 25 minutes at the very most. So if you have any questions, do not be shy at all to go ahead and fire them right away, because again, this is going to be over before you even know it. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. You can see Mark's already down there, who says, great call on Spieth at the President's Cup. You need some more of my brilliance for tomorrow. So hey, that's why we're here, right? And yeah, thanks for pointing that out, man. Obviously, the play worked out pretty well for us as well. Glad it worked out for you too. But let's get this thing started. So I'm going to share my screen, bring up Data Golf, and let's go ahead and talk about the golf course, which today played significantly easier than what we saw there on Thursday. And while I thought it would be a little bit easier, I'm not sure if I quite expected a full shot, right? If you take a look at Thursday, it played a little bit over par, 3/100ths of a stroke over par. And today played nearly 9/10ths of a stroke under par. So right around a 0.91 shot difference, which again was a little bit more sizable than I expected. But the winds were lower here on Friday, actually came in even lower than projected. So of course the weathermen were wrong, right? We should pretty much expect that every single day. But you also had easier pin locations. And rather than day one, where I believe only like a handful of holes played significantly under par, you also had a few that played nearly a third of a shot over par. Another one that played a third of a shot over par, a few that were right around a quarter of a stroke, right? 0.17, 0.25, 0.12, and 0.22. Look at round 2, right? Not nearly as many difficult holes. A lot of the tricky pin locations that you saw there for Thursday weren't quite there. So you could see, that stretch between 6 and 8. You don't see nearly as much difficulty. And then towards the end, 16 and 18 were still relatively difficult. But outside of those two holes, there was really nothing to stumble the players up. So it was partially the weather. I think also partially the pin locations that you saw there for Friday. And then on Saturday, when we have a moving day set of pins, it's going to be even more so risk reward. There's going to be a few trap pin locations out there, but anytime they can put a pin in a bowl or give a players a chance to go out there, get it to within 1 or 2 feet, that's what you're going to see there on Saturday. So I would expect a lot more of what we saw on Friday. So probably a scoring average closer to 1 shot under par, maybe even a stroke and a half. Because we also have to remember that all of the sorry players, people that weren't in form, that were shooting like, let's see, I hate doing this, but Josh Joseph Hanko, right, 22 over, 9 over par for Vaughn Taylor, Chad Ramey, Justin Saw. All of these sort of players heavily skew the average, right? Just as, obviously the leaders at 10 under and 9 skew it in the other direction. It's just that, when there's a plus 22 out there and so many guys that just absolutely stunk it up, you're going to see a scoring average improve drastically. In terms of the weather, it's also a little bit more advantageous here, a little bit more benign conditions, wind gusts that stay in the single digits throughout the entire day, a little bit more wind gusts closer to like 10 or 11 a.m., so closer to midday. You do see a little bit of spike in terms of the wind gusts there, but still they never get into the 20s. They're right around a 12-mile-an-hour wind gust throughout the entire afternoon. So while I expect it to be a little bit easier to play in the morning, and again, the temperature isn't as big a deal as it was on Thursday. If you were here for the round 2 live stream, you'll remember that it started at 50 degrees on Thursday, which was a real factor for why it was more difficult on Thursday morning. When we split it by wave for today, you can see that really wasn't an effect, right? In the morning, it played easier than what you saw in the afternoon. Whereas for the first day, it was nearly a 0.7 shot difference harder in the morning wave. Here for the second time around, it was right around 0.3 shots easier. And by the way, going into the week, I mentioned the PM AM stack being the advantageous wave. You guys remember that? There for the live stream there on Wednesday evening. That was definitely the case, right? You had a 0.7 shot split for the first day, and then on the second day, another 0.3 shots. That's an entire stroke difference over the first 2 rounds. That has certainly led to me having a really good player pool. And in fact, over the first 2 rounds, I have 27 6 of 6 lineups. So that is significantly higher than the average. That's close to like 18, 19% 6 of 6. In my contest, the average was 5.8%. So playing the advantageous wave, and I didn't play all PMAM guys, right? I had, I believe, of my 35 players, I believe like 24 of them were the PMAM wave, but I only had like 10 or 11 there from the AM PM wave. So I really tried to limit it. And a lot of my highest exposure players were guys that were in the advantageous wave. So I think that's why I've had such a good start to this week, right? When you have these sort of advantages and other people out there in the industry aren't necessarily so keen on it, it's a really good situation to attack. And that's certainly what I did this week. Let's go ahead and hop over to the player pool now. Again, guys, this is going to be a short live stream, so sorry if it seems like I'm going a little bit too quickly here, moving through it. I do have to say, too, that the community had a really good day today. I cashed in 102 of my 150 Showdown lineups. I had my main America lineup that I called it #America was the lineup name that I went with the Discord. Had all guys with the American flag on it. That also cashed. Actually scored over 200 and I believe 46 fantasy points. So not too shabby from that department. We had, I believe, Oliveira almost took down a GBP. Nick was in first place of the Largeville GBP for quite some time. I believe even had a lineup up there in the top 5 as well. So we had 2 up there. And then Mackenzie Hughes came through and absolutely ruined the day. So it was a pretty solid day for the community. Obviously, myself, I ended up 3Xing there, so I can't complain about that. And I'm sure a lot of you out there as well that watched the stream yesterday probably had a pretty solid day too. Let's see what we've got. Nick says, got the chest hair flow right, ready for dinner. Yeah, you know, if we're going out, we got to let the ladies see what they're missing out on. Mark Green says, think Straka can keep it going. I do think so. He's somebody who's very much so a momentum-based player, and he looks like he's rocking right now. CJ says, what's going on with Justin Suh? Is he always trash, or is it just this course? I didn't play him this week. You know, that first performance at the Fortinet was quite eye-opening is probably the best way to put it, or at least the nicest way to put it. He's probably just at a few bad courses. Or, you know, dude, golf is a volatile sport. You're going to have guys that are the best players in the world miss the cut from time to time. It could just be volatility. So, man, I don't really have an answer for you. I haven't been there, so I haven't been burned by the Justin Suh chalk the last few weeks. But if he's going to go down to like 5% at the next tournament, you bet your ass I'm playing him. He's supposed to be a really good stud from the Korn Ferry Tour. And if just because he's missed a few cuts, no one wants to play him now, they'd all jump on board, right? But I'm not going to play him as donkey chalk out there, like 15 to 20% owned, coming off the Korn Ferry Tour. And he's also like $85,000 to $9,000. Like, you kidding me? That seems like a pretty fish play. So I don't know what to attribute it to, CJ, but I hope he's low owned. I hope people overreact, think that he's just a dog shit player, because that makes him a great play next time out. Because everything we've heard about him, man, is that he's a pretty solid player. So, you know, I haven't played him. I've gotten away with it, but I don't know how long that's going to last, right? If I fade him forever, it's probably going to bite me at some point. Travis says, what's up, Luke? Seems like the morning tee times are struggling the past 2 rounds. They didn't do it today, so I'll share my screen, show it again here. I just went through it. Not really today. Today, the morning wave is advantageous, exactly how we expected it to, right? I went into the week, I told you guys that the PM AM stack was going to be advantageous. The first day, it was a 0.7 shot difference, where in the morning, you could see it played, over par. In the afternoon, it played 0.7 shots easier. And then today, right, the morning wave was about 0.35 shots easier. So you had a shot differential between the 2 waves. We expected that. Like, I talked about that on the live stream on Wednesday night. So it's always great to see when, you know, what we expect to happen happens, right? Particularly from the weather perspective, because these weathermen are just absolute idiots. But what that happened there, Travis, by the way, I know why that happened. So if you weren't here for the other stream, I talked about it. On Thursday morning, it was 45 degrees. It felt like it was 48 degrees out there. If you've never played golf in really cold conditions, Travis, the ball doesn't travel very far. In fact, I believe every 10 degrees Fahrenheit that you have, like in terms of differential, it's like a solid like 4 to 5% differential in terms of your distance. So the heavier air, the thicker air really impedes you from hitting the ball as far. So let's say somebody that's driving it like 310 yards, they may legitimately be carrying it like 285, 290 yards at the very most when it's like 45 degrees. People didn't think about that, right? Like, a lot of people around the industry, the figureheads just didn't talk about that going into the week. But the temperature is almost just as big a factor as the actual wind gusts out there, particularly when it's going from like 45 degrees, like it was there on Thursday morning, to 75 degrees in the afternoon, right? It was a 30 degree differential. That's whatever, you know, depending on the humidity of the air, there's no exact science to it. But that's like a 12 to 15% difference in terms of your actual distance, right? So the guys in the afternoon were hitting the ball like 20 to 25 yards farther off the tee. That's exactly why it happened. And why it didn't happen today is, right, look in the morning, it was 60 degrees. In the afternoon, it was 75 degrees. It wasn't a 30 degree differential. it was a lot closer to what, like a 15 degree, right? So in a 15-degree differential is what, like a 6 to 7% difference in terms of your distance. They're also dealing with firmer greens in the afternoon, right? I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong day over here, right? It was 55 degrees in the morning. It was 70 degrees, 75 degrees in the afternoon. It's the same thing today, right? So where the differential isn't as nearly as drastic as what it was for Thursday, and the wind gusts are also relatively consistent throughout the day. So what we saw today was right around a 0.3 shot difference is probably what we can expect going forward. I think on Thursday, it was just one of those one-off situations that you're not going to see very often. And also Thursday morning, they had slightly higher wind gusts. The wind gusts on Thursday morning were between 25 and 35 miles an hour, as opposed to the afternoon, which were closer to 20 to 25 miles an hour. So there were a couple of reasons for that, Travis, but that was certainly to be expected. We talked about that going into the week. And you say, and I see you said you play in the cold. Yeah, you should know that then, man. If it's super cold out there, it's really going to have an impact on the conditions. Antonio says, Mac Hughes, oh my God, -9 is a joke. Hey, I don't think that's a joke. That's a pretty damn impressive performance if you ask me. So I have to tip my cap to somebody like Mackie Hughes. He had a really good day. Jack Fisher says, do you think Sam Burns can make a run at it over the weekend? Yes, I honestly think that he could very well win this golf tournament. He's lost strokes. I believe it was like 1.1 day one. He lost over 1.2 strokes putting today. On track to lose even more strokes on the greens than he did last year. And the ball striking, though it's not nearly as sharp as when he won in 2020, he's still a top 10, top 20 player in both categories when it comes to his approach and off the tee play. Yeah, dude, he has more than a chance. Definitely live. If he even is just a neutral putter over the weekend, he's going to get himself into the top 10, if not the top 5. He goes out there, he has one good round with the putter. That's probably enough to get him to at least the top 3. So yes, Jack, I think he has more than a chance. Nick says you ended up 10x after Mac Hughes decided to be Tiger. Hey, at least you still 10x'd, right? You still got 10 more giblets, got 10 more slates worth of entries now. That sucks, though. Yeah, me too, dude. I was up there towards the top. I had a few live lineups. I was never in first place like you. I had a few in the top 15 for quite a few hours out there in the morning. But yeah, Mackie Hughes destroyed my dreams. Pretty much every lineup in the top 15 to 20 after that had Mackie Hughes. So yeah, man, sometimes you run into a little bit of a buzzsaw. Roback says thoughts on Dietry. So he's a little bit chalky. I don't think he's my favorite play just because he's getting a lot of attention. So yeah, we're going to talk about the strategy now. So I'll use him as an example here, give you a better idea. And Jack says you were watching a bit of the European tour today in over 40-mile-an-hour winds. And of course, you drop the nugget that Richard Mansell is leading. We love Richard Mansell around here, right? Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Let's talk through the strategy, though, guys. We only have 10 minutes. Like, I literally got to go in 10 minutes. So we're going to do this as fast as possible. If you have any questions, throw them down in chat. After I do my quick run through of the player poll, I'll get through the questions. And that's probably all we're going to have time for. So if you have them, make sure to get them in there now. Anytime we're playing round 3 showdown, guys, this is what you need to know. All the guys at the top of the leaderboard are going to get a lot of attention. So I know we just got a question about Thomas Dietry, who's -10. Sure, he's playing beautiful golf. He's also, I'd say, a top 10 player in this field in terms of his pedigree, but he's going to be owned like he's the nuts, like nearly 30% on somebody like a Thomas Dietry. And in fact, he's starting to sniff somebody like a Sam Burns when it comes to their ownership level. And right, going into the week, they weren't even close in terms of exposure. And based on the ball striking stats to this point, right, Dietry, number 1 in the field when it comes to shots gained approach. So you have to give him credit there, but he's also gained well over 3 strokes on the greens. So it's not like he's gone out there and just ball striked the place to death. In fact, his ball striking numbers in Sam Burns are almost identical because Burns is still gaining off the tee, also pretty significant gainer on approach. He's just not gaining on the greens. And if you're going to get me pretty much identical ownership, I mean, there's Sam Burns is higher owned than Thomas Dietry, that's for sure, right? But it's not a drastic difference. You're going to tell me they're even in the same ballpark. I don't care that he's $1,200 more expensive. I'm going to play Sam Burns all day, right? So that's the strategy up top. These guys that are at -10, -8, just to give you an idea, Mark Hubbard, Sepp Straka is going to be super chalky. We're going to talk about Straka, though. I don't think you need to avoid him. Steven Yeager is going to get attention. Somebody like a Nick Hardy down here. Obviously, Mackie Hughes down here at -10 is going to get attention. But all of these players that are, let's say, like -6, -7 or better, are going to have at least a 5, maybe 7% bump in ownership. And just by pivoting off them long-term for round 3 showdown, you can be a profitable DFS player in terms of your showdown exposure. I have a long enough sample size, a long enough record to show that that's the case. And sure, you might get burned from slate to slate whenever the chalk goes out there and hits, but more often than not, because golf is such a volatile sport, you're going to win, right? Because people are out there playing guys that are 30-40% owned, and their optimal rates are probably closer to something like 5 to 7% at best, right? There's still like 70, I believe 79 players that ended up making the cut here after the first 2 rounds. Not every player has the same optimal percentage, but out of the 6 spots that you have, I mean, you're looking at, sub 5% being the average optimal rate. And some of these guys being owned in like 30-40% of lineups, it's not like Sam Burns has like 10 times the chance of being optimal as, I mean, I even hate to say it, guys, like these 6K options, like Hayden Buckley at $6,800, he's not 10 times more likely than him to succeed, right? So if you're just playing the game theory game, you want to be taking the guys that are being overlooked, right? And that doesn't mean take everybody down here in the 6K range, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying take everybody that's just 1% owned, but in general, that should be your thought process, right? So maybe that's how I'm handling Dietry again. I just think he's going to be overhyped. He's going to be overowned because of his spot on the leaderboard. And I see myself playing other players. So just to give you an idea of who I'm playing again, this is going to be real quick. So if it seems like I'm rushing, I probably am. Taylor Montgomery at 10 grand. I like it quite a bit. The ball striking numbers look a lot better than what we saw last week. And in fact, you probably wouldn't think that's the case based on his position on the leaderboard, but he was completely carried by the flat stick. And now the flat stick isn't really cooperating, which I kind of expected, right? I wasn't expecting him to go out there and gain 10, 11 strokes putting again. That's just not realistic. But I know that he's a top level, elite level ball striker. And we've seen that this week. But we also saw last week his upside with the putter. He can clearly pop. And if you look at his Korn Ferry Tour stats, most of the time when he was finishing in the top 5, top 10 of tournaments, which for his last 10 starts was 9 of the 10 starts, which by the way, a lot of people out there, I guess, just don't understand how good Taylor Montgomery is because I've heard just so much disrespect on his name. He's literally the best Korn Ferry Tour prospect we've ever had coming out of the Korn Ferry Tour. And nobody's talking about that. His average finish there on the Korn Ferry Tour is outstanding. It makes Will Zalatoris look like a shitter. Makes him look like an absolute fucking scrub when you compare their records out there. Montgomery, he's not the best player in this field. That's clearly Sam Burns, but he's also a top 5 player in the field, I think, as of right now. So at 10 grand, he's actually lower owned than Davis Riley. He's much lower owned than a Thomas Dietry. He's even lower owned than somebody like a Scott Stallings. And he's about half as owned as somebody like a Sam Burns. I'm going right back to the well. And again, maybe I'm crazy if you're thinking he's this good. Look at his Korn Ferry Tour record and tell me how you can't be enamored with this guy. Guy's top 5, top 10 literally every single week. Every single week, Taylor Montgomery went out there and just absolutely smashed the rest of the field. It's still full field events over there for the Korn Ferry Tour. I don't think people understand how impressive that is. So that's my Taylor Montgomery spiel. I'm done talking about him. But Sam Burns also like to play too. A few other low-owned pivots in the 9K range. Keegan Bradley has kind of been spinning his wheels to this point. Got off to a hot start there on Thursday, but has kind of just been playing bogey, birdie golf, going back and forth, teetering like a seesaw for the last, I'd say like 24 holes at this point. But he's $9,100. He's low-owned, right? 17.5%. Isn't very low-owned when you compare it to 4-round ownership. But you have to keep in mind, right? We have a little bit more than half the players than what we had for 4-round contest. So 17% ownership is probably closer to something like, I don't know, like 10 to 12%, right, for a 4-round contest. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit more condensed. Miliano Grillo had a really good day today. I had some exposure there, but probably not going back. He tends to be a little bit of a volatile player, a little bit of a spurt player, right? Isn't very consistent. Mark Hubbard's going to be chalky. I do want to talk about Sepp Straka here, though. If anybody's going to ride momentum, it's Sepp Straka. We saw it at the Honda Classic. We've seen it a few times over the last few years. When this guy gets on a roll, he's usually able to keep it rolling. And that's really what makes him dangerous is he'll go out there, right? And if he has negative momentum, he usually carries that too. But if he's going in the right direction, oh boy, watch out. Sepp Straka has a legitimate chance to win that golf tournament. He could win this golf tournament. I don't want to make the early call now, but if Sam Burns isn't winning this thing, it's probably Sepp Straka that ends up taking this thing home. So I don't know what his live outright number is, but if it's juicy enough, I actually might get a little bit of an investment from me. And I usually don't like betting the guys that are out front, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the sports books are going to be a little bit disrespectful to a Sepp Straka, right, based on his track record. And that's probably something I'm looking to leverage on. But Taylor Moore has played unbelievably clean golf to this point. I just want to go ahead and confirm this here. So 1 second here, boys. Let me go ahead and look this up. Taylor Moore had a bogey-free round today. He may have also had one for the first round too. I just want to go ahead and confirm this before I say it. I know he had the one today, Taylor Moore, but I think he may have also had a bogey-free round in the first round, but I'll confirm it. 2 seconds here. So let's see. His first round scorecard. No, he didn't. Okay, he had a couple bogeys on round one. I'm not sure what I was thinking. Must have been somebody else that had the bogey-free round, but he had a bogey-free round today. Went out there, was not very solid with the putter, which is surprising for Taylor Moore. If there's one category that he can reliably go out there and gain with, it's on the greens, right? From tee to green, it's a little bit inconsistent. I'd say it's just an above average player, about average with his distance off the tee. His approach play is actually a little bit sketchy, but today he lost nearly 2 strokes putting. Everything else is what kept him in the game, what gained him strokes to the field, gained significantly on approach and off the tee there. Just return back to your putting baseline, Taylor Moore, and you're going to be an absolute killer. So I like him there. I like the fact that he played clean golf today, had no bogeys on the card. Clearly playing better than the scorecard indicates. A few other low-end guys here. I mean, pretty much everyone in this range from Seamus Power the whole way down to Chris Kirk is going to be relatively low owned in that like 10 to 15% range at the very most, if not lower, for somebody like, let's say, Justin Lauer, obviously, calling him lower, and Adam Hadwin. I do like Will Gordon here, though, for a bounce back. So he's $7,700. He had a horrible day today. In fact, almost missed the cut after being first round leader. Almost went full Keegan on our ass. Ended up making the cut on the number at -2. But this is a talented kid, right? We saw him last year at the Travelers. I give him shit because he fell off after that point. But to earn your tour card on the Korn Ferry Tour takes a lot of talent, a lot of merit. He was extremely consistent too. The ball striking stats at the Fortinet were solid. Of course, for the first round where he was first round leader, we know that he had a really good performance out there. I look for a bounce back. He was donkey chalk today. People played him in Showdown, expecting him to continue it. They were burned by it, which who would have guessed, right? The guy that's first round leader doesn't go out there and be the first round leader again there in round 2. Who would have guessed? Who would have thought, right? These fish out there and their game score watching. They're quite funny when it comes to their ownership. But yeah, Will Gordon, I'm willing to get there after he let all the chalk donkey down. Moving on, we've got Aaron Rai. He started off horribly. I mean, day 1 shot over par. Today, I believe, was 1 or 2 over par through his first 5 or 6 holes, but ended up making 4 birdies in a row on his back 9, I believe, holes like 13 through 16. He ended up making 4 straight birdies. I love the momentum that he's carrying, and also played well in the DP World Tour the other day. So $7,400. I like the way that he's trending, and just in terms of talent level, is a better player than his peers. Sam Ryder, another player I love taking in Showdown. It's not just his ability to hole out that makes him attractive. It's the fact that he's an aggressive player. He's at -3, starting off early, has nothing to lose, has to go out there and gain strokes to the field to make up room. So at $7,100, only 3% owned. Definitely somebody I'm considering. John Huh, he had a decent round today, only hardly ended up making the cut. So he's not going to be highly owned. But the real reason to like John Huh is his volatility, right? We saw that towards the end of the season, was in contention for a few of those tournaments there. That's why he ended up getting his tour card, getting into the FedEx Cup playoffs. But in general, I love him in Showdown because he's not afraid to go low. Kind of like a Pierre Malnati that we played today, who had an eagle, I believe, like 4 or 5 birdies on the day. Pretty solid performance, if you ask me. He was in a lot of my top lineups. John Huh's that same sort of player. So 2.3% owned. I definitely see myself getting there. And that's it, boys. Like I said, I got to keep this a little bit quick here. Let's go ahead and catch up on questions, see what we've got going on. Nick Marsh says, you've got outrights on Dietry, Straka, Riley, and Jagerbaum. I've got one on Riley. Shit, I can't even remember this. Montgomery and Austin Smotherman. So, Montgomery -4, Riley's -7, and Smotherman is -4. So I got all 3 of them through the cut. But yeah, we got to see. I got to see if they keep them live. I only bet 3 this week, so all 3 of them are live. That's pretty solid for you, right? You got Dietry at the top. I mean, that's the absolute nuts right now. But I have a sneaking suspicion about Straka or Riley there. I mentioned Straka before as potentially my pick to win. I think you might be onto something there. Randy says, you're on Jaeger. Any thoughts? I like Steven Jaeger. The thing I have to say about him is that he's a little bit of a momentum player. We've seen that from Jaeger. When he gets hot, he's able to sustain it. And he's also one of the few players in this field that shot a 59. He shot a 59 on the Korn Ferry Tour. So Steven Jaeger, maybe worth a few looks because he's one of the few guys that can get to that kind of score. Straka says, he said Straka's plus 750. See, I'd rather bet Burns at plus 2K at that point. They're not being nearly as disrespectful to Straka as I would have thought. But if I wake up tomorrow and let's say Straka there in the afternoon, starts off with like a bogey or two, they might drop him down to like 40 or 50 to 1, and I might smash it because Straka, he might start off a little bit hairy, but if he figures it out, gets back on track, he's going to be up there, like 4 or 5 shots back? Maybe it makes sense then. We'll have to see. But yeah, plus 750. That's not nearly enough meat on the bone there. Randy says you are sweating Luke List. Yeah, I liked Luke List. He made the cut. That's pretty decent. But today just could not buy a putt for his life. Somebody says hi from North Korea. Okay. And Mark Bornman says, hey, William, Kamala Harris as well. We're going to end the stream at that. That's cracking me up. William, if you're actually from North Korea, guess what's up? I didn't know they let you guys watch DFS streams over there, but welcome in, I guess. You're probably just trolling, but hey, I guess if you are there, it is what it is. But I appreciate everybody stopping by, enjoying the content. Hopefully everybody out there has a solid Saturday. Actually, before we hop on out of here, let me see if they have the Prize Picks board up. They probably don't. Actually, they do. They just dropped it. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give you my 5-minute at very most look at the Prize Picks board. So let's do that actually. So let me go ahead, share my screen here. There we go. All right. There we go. Now we're all set. So the Prize Picks board just dropped. So this is my first time looking at it, and it looks like they've kept it relatively consistent, right? So guys like Sam Burns up there at 4.5, they bumped up Seamus Power to 4.5 birdies, which I don't necessarily agree with. They still have Davis Riley at 4.5, somebody I took an under on today. I mean, I expect the course to play easier, and it seems like they've kind of accounted for that. So that's slightly disappointing. It seems like a fair board, which I would prefer over the board that we had today. I mean, today my picks went 10, 3, and 1. So we had a 77% hit rate, but they were literally all unders. I didn't take one over or one supportive stance, which would be like an over on birdies or an under on strokes. This kind of board, when it's a little bit more fair, we're going to be able to get some of those 12.5x multipliers, right? Some of those 7.5x 3-leg power plays, that sort of thing. So I like that aspect of it. But it's not going to be nearly as straightforward, right? Where we're going out there and just taking all unders on pretty much every single prop like we did yesterday. The strokes props might be the ones to take a look at because it's going to be easier both from the weather and the pin location perspective. And the scoring average today was already 1 stroke under par. It's probably going to be like 1.2, 1.5 strokes tomorrow. Probably something to monitor there. Like unders and guys like a Sam Burns again at 69.5 probably makes some sense. The guys at like 71, maybe not as advantageous, right? I mean, they're the lower end players. We'll have to see. I think the birdie or better props, there's a few of them we could take overs on that makes sense, like a Sam Burns. But then a few fades, like a Thomas Dietry, right? I'd probably be fading him. He's in the lead. He's not going to have as much incentive to be aggressive. And maybe an under on a guy like Keegan Bradley, right? That's not the best putter, not the most consistent putter. I like him for Showdown, but I'm not sure I like him from a 50-50 perspective when we're going after props. So that's what I'll say about Keegan. In terms of strokes, we talked about it. Better matchups. I'm not going to give you guys the picks, right? Because those are just straight up pick'ems there. There's not really much to talk about in terms of like general trends. So if you're looking for my picks for better matchups, they'll be on the Patreon, just like all of the ownership numbers and player pool that I'm going with for tomorrow. Greens regulation now. There are a lot of unders that hit today. And the greens are only going to get firmer throughout the weekend. It's still a little bit windy tomorrow. I'd probably shade under on guys like a Dietry, under on some of the lower level iron players like a Christian Bezainhout, probably under on, Adam Hadwin once again, who hit the under today. And I wish they had sink at 12.5 greens because I'd probably take the under there too. So it's shading under on greens again. I'm assuming it's going to be under for fairways. Ooh, they did kind of adjust it here. So they've adjusted some of the numbers down. Guys like Sink and List were at 7.5 yesterday. I mean, Dietry at 7 is actually somebody I take the over on. I don't think he's that inaccurate off the tee. Yeah, so they've made some adjustments. So just overall, my thoughts, they've taken the board, they've made it a little bit sharper. They're clearly expecting it to play a little bit easier here on Saturday than it has the first 2 days, which I tend to agree with, which is kind of unfortunate, right? It's usually a good thing when they do something that I don't agree with because then we can attack the board a little bit more aggressively. But it does open us up some 12.5x parlays, a little bit more of a balanced card. So I'll say that. Mostly looking at some of these birdie or better props, it's probably my favorite category as of what I see right now. Unders on greens, it seems like a pretty solid proposition to go after, and we'll have to see with the birdie or better matchups. But that is all I've got. I'm out of time at this point, guys. Let's see what we've got. Randy says, thanks, Luke. You always give you hope. Hey, we've been on a heater here on the channel of late, so it's been more than hope. I've won about 30x my money over the last 2 weeks. So hey, hopefully you've been tailing, because if you have, you've probably been doing pretty well. Antonio says, "Hey Luke, are you looking at the DP World Tour?" I'm not watching it. I don't even know the leaderboard. So Antonio, I don't want to give you bad advice. I have no idea. I don't even know the golf course. I'm not a huge DP World Tour guy. When NFL season is going on, it's really hard to follow the DP World Tour, because I'm investing, 6-7 hours of my day into the PGA Tour, typically a solid 4 or 5 hours into the NFL. And then over the weekends, it's flip flopped. It's normally like 6 or 7 hours into NFL, and then something like 4 to 5 hours into PGA. I just don't have time in the day, right, to look at the DP World Tour. So just no advice I can give you that's going to make some sense there. But wanted to give you the obvious answer. And Mark says, glad you got the Kamala joke. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. And he said, appreciate it, bro. Have a good night. Yeah, absolutely, boys. So best of luck with all of your lineups, guys. I got to get out to this dinner at this point. Best luck with your lineups. Any prize pick slips if you're going in that direction. We will be doing a live stream tomorrow night going over round 4. So I imagine it'll be a little bit earlier in the day. Obviously, we had another football stream to do at 7 p.m. So that's why we had to go live at 9. But I imagine probably closer to 7:30 or 8 p.m. we'll be going live for round 4. So stay tuned for updates on my Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of the social media that I use to go ahead and post updates. And if you don't follow me there, a lot of you guys are subscribed on YouTube, but if you don't follow me on Twitter and all of those other channels, I'd highly recommend it, because that's when you get idea when I'm going live, post all of my content links there. Just a good way to interact with me outside of the YouTube. But again, guys, I appreciate all the support here on the channel, all you guys subscribing, liking the video. If you guys haven't already liked it, make sure to do so before you hop on out of here, and make sure you are a subscriber as well, so you don't miss any of the content in the future.